Some of my content has mention of extreme violence, sexual assault, and/or other triggering content. Discretion is advised. Hello, today we are talking about something that's just been really heavy on my mind. It's something that keeps me up at night. It's something that just doesn't seem right to me, and so I wanted to be able to express it. So let's get started. So I wanted to start out today by saying that the subject of race and racism is extremely uncomfortable. It feels icky to talk about, it's not fun to talk about, and it's uncomfortable. But if we don't talk about it, there's never going to be a change made. So this is me coming to the forefront and saying that we've got to talk about these things. And I have seen a lot of this in true crime, and I want to express it. I feel like this subject is not talked about around true crime, and I don't know why. I don't know why it's not being talked about more. I know that in the recent years, the recent months, it's been starting to pick up traction, and I'm going to list some things below, some resources, and some things that maybe will change your mind on this subject. So here's a little PSA. I am white, and I don't pretend to know the struggles that someone else has gone through or is going through. And I know that I am privileged, and I have the ability to sit in front of a camera and voice my opinion. And I am hoping that by doing this, someone will listen, someone will change their mind. I have the ability to point out things that I see are unjust and talk about them. So that's what I'm going to do. So I want to say that I am not perfect, and I don't want to offend anyone of color. And so if I say something wrong, educate me, because I want to know. And I know that I might get a lot of hate for this video. And I'm prepared for that, and I understand that, but I won't feel right in my mind unless I talk about it. So let's talk about it. There's a huge gap in the true crime community. I have been listening to true crime. I take in a lot of true crime, and I've been doing that for years now. And I've noticed kind of a pattern that a lot of people are starting to notice, and that is that a lot of the people talking true crime, a lot of the victims in true crime are white. If we go back in history and we look at a lot of the victims that people fixate on, the majority of it is white women. Why is this happening? I don't know, but I have a theory. So when I start to research a case, I go on and I look at news articles. I go and see if there's any YouTube videos out there, try to see if I have any competition on the matter. But I also want to know how many people are talking about a certain subject, and that way I know whether it's important to get it out or not. So I just have to say that when I go and I look up a case of a person of color, there is very, very little. Now, this is not always the case, but in most circumstances, when I go and I research someone's name of an indigenous individual or a person of color, there's like 2 articles, if that. I have typed in a name and gotten nothing, absolutely nothing from the internet about this missing person other than maybe a name. And it's hard for me, I've talked about this before, to make a full video, a full story of a person's life and what happened in this horrible moment to them if I know nothing about them. I really like to give a full picture of a victim and say, this person was funny, this person loved to dance, this person liked to do art, whatever it is. I want to create that picture. And if I know nothing about a victim, it's very hard for me to put a video together. However, if I type in the name Charles Manson or Edmund Kemper or really any big serial killer, big crime, there's 857 videos on YouTube. Their whole life is researched. There's tons and tons to look at. And I don't know if that's where the gap is coming from, that there's just not a lot of information, interesting information out there, but it's so incredibly uneven. It's weird to me because all of these serial killers of the 80s have tons and tons and tons of material on it. And trust me, I listen to it and I'm interested in it as well. But there's also all of these cases of people of color, indigenous people, also people that are white, that is happening right now that no one's covering. And it's odd to me. I mean, I get it from a YouTube perspective. When I put a video out, like let's say the Cassidy Rainwater case, which was my biggest case, I put the video out, the first video. I had no idea if it was going to do well or not. It did pretty well, decently well, but I had to do 4 or 5 videos that update on that case because it was happening in real time. And a lot of people doing this job, whether it be podcasting or YouTube, want to wrap things up in a tiny, nice little box and present it to you as a full case. And I get that. And a lot of listeners want that. They don't want 4 or 5 videos they have to search for to tell a story. I get that, and I understand. But I also put out videos because I want there to be something done in that case. Whether it be more attention, whether it be me just wanting people to know, me warning people, you know, like in the St. Louis serial killer case, my first video is saying, there's a killer out there that's preying on people of color, women in St. Louis, like, be careful. And it ended up being a serial killer. And no one cared. No one cared. The amount of views I got on the Cassidy Rainwater case compared to a serial killer that was happening in real time, vastly different. And that's just on my channel. That's just what I am dealing with. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Maybe people just are more interested or haven't found my serial killer video. But it's weird. It's very weird that the case of a serial killer who happened to be a person of color and all the victims were people of color, no one's talking about it. There's not a blurb. And when I do hear about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, someone actually talked about it. I should not have that reaction. And researching that case was extremely difficult because all I had was a list of names. I didn't even have gender identity for a person. I didn't know what to call them, how old they were. I just had a list of names. And it's hard to put a video out with a list of names. Now, listen, I am the biggest advocate for the true crime community. I love the true crime community. Fans of true crime, and that's a weird way to say it, but people who are interested in true crime will go the extra mile to put something out there. There has been people who are interested in true crime solve cases, come up with evidence that police didn't even know was there. Some podcasts are helping to catch serial rapists. I mean, we do so much good in the world. And I, for one, love people in the true crime community. I am just calling out to people to say, pay a little bit more attention to people of color as well. So this is my theory, And I may be completely wrong, and I am willing to admit that. This is just what I have kind of thought over the last few months of what's happening. And my theory is that history has a lot to do with what is happening right now. I believe that our American history set us on this path that it's really hard to come back from. So, if you don't know much about American history, there was slavery, and then there was segregation. Segregation was terrible for the community. This was people of color being completely outcasted from their communities, and it was legal. And when segregation ended, what I think a lot of what we saw was that people of color decided, okay, we have this freedom now. We can get jobs, we can raise families, we can be side by side with people. So they went into the inner cities where all the jobs were happening, where all the white businesses were. And what we saw happening was white people freaked out, as white people do, and they did this thing called white flight, which is they decided they were going to move and pull everything out of the inner city. So they took all their businesses, they went to the suburbs, they took their homes, they took their schools, they took their everything and fled into the suburbs. So then there's people of color in the intercities with no jobs, and some of them created their own jobs, they created their own communities, everything was great. But what we saw happen sometimes was that it left people in the inner cities in poverty. And over the years, it's gotten better, but a lot of what we still see right now is that. And when it comes to white people, myself included, I feel like subconsciously or consciously, we almost have this thing where it's an us versus them. And this is just my theory. Could be right or wrong. I feel like we have an attitude that when we see black on black crime, gun violence, gang violence in the inner city, we have this need to say, that's them. It's not us. So let's not worry about it. Let's not worry about all of the gun violence that's happening over there. That's them. But then when this white person, this white female, is flashed across our news screens, and it says that someone came into our community and killed a white woman, or a white woman is missing, it's like, whoa, that could be me. That is us. And so we freak out, and there's so much news coverage. There's just everything pointed in that direction. That's my theory of where this is coming from. And trust me, I'm not putting the blame on anyone, but I do think there needs to be a change. Now that we know what's happening, let's change it. Let's start showing up for the people that need us. Everyone, every individual is important, and they matter. And no matter if they look like us, if they have lives like us, if they're different from us, they still matter, and they're still a person. And any person who goes missing or is murdered, it's a crime. It's a horrendous crime. As of 2020, happening right now, 34% of people that were reported missing were Black, were people of color. And I don't see that. I don't see that anywhere. I don't see that being covered. So the person that first figured this all out was a PBS reporter named Gwendolyn Ifill. And Gwen was an amazing person who stood up and was like, wait a second. Out of all of this coverage of missing and murdered individuals, the people with diverse backgrounds get none of it. Unfortunately, Gwendolyn Ifill did pass away of cancer, but the message is still ringing true to today, and it's starting to get a lot more traction. People are really starting to listen to this theory that there's this white woman syndrome, that when a white person, mainly a white female, goes missing or is murdered, that there's an outrage, but not with other diverse communities. So let me throw out some names to you and see which ones you recognize. Lacey Peterson, Natalie Holloway, Mara Murray, Gabby Petito. The victims of the St. Louis and Kansas City killings. Adriana Barnes, Raja McQueen, both killed in Cleveland. Mary Johnson, and Claudia Patricia Gomez, who was a 19-year-old from Guatemala who was murdered on May 23rd, 2018. She was shot and killed by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol in Texas. So how many of those stories did you know? How many of those names have you heard over and over and over and over again, and you've only heard the other names a few times or have never heard them? There is a clear gap, and I'm not perfect. And I am going to try my best to do coverage of everything. I want to report on interesting cases, serial killers from the 80s that everyone else is reporting on because it's interesting to me. But I also want to cover cases that no one's covering, of people of color, the indigenous community, people that don't get coverage. So I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying anyone's bad or wrong for covering any case, because honestly, like, every person matters. Every story matters. And I feel like now that we know, we should start as a community doing better. So here is my call to you. For this video, I want all of my followers, everybody who watches this video, to go out and seek one name of someone from the indigenous community, someone from a person of color, just someone who doesn't get reported on, and put them in the comments below. And we're going to start a chain. We're going to start kind of like a campaign of everyone matters. It takes one person to change. It takes one person to report on something that they see. So that's my call to you. Just write a name. That's all you have to do. And other people can look it up. Other people can put information, and we can start making a change. As always, if you like my content, if you want to see more of me, of course, hit the subscribe button and the like button. But let's make it about the victims in this one. And let's just start a comment chain of people who just love other people. So, thank you for watching. I know this one was icky and uncomfortable, and it's not fun to talk about, but it's really important, and it was important to me to get it out. And look, I may get a lot of heat for this. I may lose followers. I may be, but I got it out. I said what I wanted to say. I feel like it's important. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hey guys, thank you for watching. If you liked this video or any of my other content, please click the subscribe button and the bell and the like button to help me with my content and my channel as it grows. Also follow me on social media platforms. Right now my biggest form of communication outside of YouTube is TikTok, so please add me on there. I make some funny true crime content on there. So thank you guys for watching. Love you.